Welcome, everyone. We'll call the Health and Human Services Committee meeting to order. And our first order of business is to accept the minutes for the March 27th, 2024 meeting. Sam? Scott? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have department requests and reports. We have quite a list of items to get through, so I'm going to ask our speakers to be concise. And we'll start with mental health.
Zero period.
Rob's not here. Okay. So why don't we go to EOC week?
Morning, everybody. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
I do have a handout for you, just our reports. So I'm coming to you today to couple it this way. Coming to you today to just for our first quarterly reports regarding our contracts between police and the county. So in front of you, what you have is reports for our food pantry agreement and our transportation agreement. The top page is food pantry, and our contract requires that we report on the number of households, individual and families served during the reporting period, the number of new households served during the reporting period, and a statement of revenue and expense for the reporting period. This reporting period is January 1, March 31 of 2024. So on the front page, you'll find the statement of revenue and expense with some notes you'll find there that explain some of what's in those line items. Total revenue for that period of time was $31,005. Total expense was $31,164, a deficit of $159 for the first quarter for running the food pantry. And give me a second to take a look at that if you have any questions. But then also on the back, you'll see that on the back of that is our food pantry use, the data regarding use. We provided numbers from previous years, and it's the same time in previous years, just for your reference. We saw a 125% increase in January of 2024 over January of 2023, 85% increase in usage for February and 60 for March. We had 16 total services. We had in that reporting period 51 new households, 304 households served total, and 855 individuals served in our food pantry in the first quarter of the year. Yeah.
Should we add to anything? Increase usage?
The increased usage, it's hard to pin down. We believe that it is largely due to the to inflation and the rising cost of food. People find it harder and harder. Those that were already on the fringe, just getting by, find it harder and harder to keep food on the table. So, yeah.
My question is going to kind of piggyback off of Jim's. I was going to ask it a little bit differently. My question is going to be, how much do you think of the outreach you're doing has attributed to the increase within that market?
It's a good question. We have increased our outreach efforts over the last 2 years, really. It is possible that more people know that we even exist and are utilizing the pantry.
Right. So I know one of your briefs you were talking about increasing the outreach.
Yeah,
That could very well have a positive effect on this.
it could. And I think to your point, it's not changing the number of people that need services, just the number of people that are accessing them. So. Any other questions about this?
I see it almost different. I think that as we see increases, we're seeing a general failure of our programs. Solve problems with the measurement of how good we're doing. As a county, as a social organization, should be seeing that decrease, get people off that. If if food pantry usage got down to zero, we would have done a magnificent job.
Yeah. We would love to work ourselves right out of the job.
Yeah, it's, seeing increases is failure for them. I mean, it's not failure in the individuals that are being helped, because they apparently need help, but we shouldn't see this as great success.
Melissa?
Shelley, now, the contract was signed the end of March for the new amount for the food pantry.
Yes.
that the county pays. So is the deficit that is already taking into account the new amount of money that we're paying out? I guess I can't remember if
I'm trying to,
first payment was made at the old rate,
right,
and then I thought we had another payment at the higher rate, but we're still in a deficit.
we are still in a deficit, but only by 159, thankfully. And we have also increased our fundraising efforts and our outreach, not to consumers, but to funders, potential funders and supporters of the food pantry. One of the things that we do see coming, I don't know exactly when, is that CSBG, as you see, is part of our funding. That's what makes us a community action agency. And they occasionally release what they call discretionary funding. And so we will be, and I don't know when, awarded $15,000 that we can use for our food pantry. That's discretionary funding. So our projected shortfall for the year, which we do still have a projected shortfall for the year, was exactly $15,000. So that was very fortuitous that that's the amount that CSBG is offering us as well. But we are also increasing our food drives, our outreach for our direct outreach to potential donors. And of course, also trying to make sure people know what services are available, not only within LEAP, but within the county as a whole, to try to, the overall goal, right, is to help move them towards self-sustainability, not to meet them at their point of crisis, but not to sustain them there, to work with them, to see them move forward. Yeah.
You look at last year's versus 2022, it looks like the increase, significant increase really started in June. Look at June, it started going to 106 to 267, July was 146 to 297. So it's not due to this year. It started mid year.
Yes.
I wonder if that, you started out more outreach, or was there anything else that happened?
Kids are out of school.
Yeah. Kids are out of
Yeah, but
school.
still, if you look back to 2022.
Yeah,
It was 267, and that's almost triple.
And remember during COVID, there was a huge increase in food stamps. That the family didn't need supplements.
I mean, that actually is a stat that I reviewed during my presentation. So just as it relates to this, the total payout through SNAP benefits in Washington County in 2022 was almost 20.8 million. There was a decrease in the benefits in what started in 2023, and that was almost 15.8. So it's $5 million difference, not going into the homes of these families that are receiving benefits.
So there was a trigger.
Yeah.
Not the failure of
Yeah.
the services program.
And to Mr. Hankey's
You don't carry all the way to the world.
Mr. Hankey, for something you're not used to from me, I'm gonna give you a glass half full measurement. If you look at it, I look at it a little bit differently too, in that if you look at from January to February to March, there were 17 new families, but the households didn't change, which means that 17 households didn't need to come back. And from February to March, there was 18 new families and 98 households. So that means 23 families didn't have to come back. So there is an underlying silver lining that while there was an increased usage, there were some families that didn't have to return. So there is some good news hidden in there a little bit.
That's the all start.
Do you remember that bring good news? Better continue.
I was trying to start.
Is there any reach out to the regional food bank to see if you could get more funds? That was the last question.
We did reach out to them, they can't increase the amount of our grant overall because it is based on it's based on the population served, so when it doesn't make sense to me, because before, when the county was getting funds from the regional food bank, and it was still serving the same population. But each program is only allowed to get a certain amount based on the population served. So the population can go to more than one food pantry each can be funded by regional food bank, but it's the amount that each food pantry can get is based on population. So, but what we did get a $200 one-time bump from a time period that they recognized that during the switch that we should have gotten something more. So wasn't much, but it was something. So we're still working with them to whatever we can from that funding.
Sure, ask one more quick question, Al, the right time. Al, for this specific program, how much have we budgeted that would money that would put in that program?
It's no amount.
Whatever.
No amount, I think it's 42,000 a year.
Sounds right. It was 20 and we bumped it to 42. Right, or it was 22.
It was, I think it was 22.
So what they've drawn down is really in line with what we've actually budgeted for. 4 quarters would be $40,000 or 10,000.
Yeah, we should be right, just about on track, very close. Okay, so the second part that I need to report to you, second portion is on our transportation contract. And so you'll see, that's the last page here, we are to report on, each then monthly reports. Those are not included here, they go directly to Gina's office. But this report that I'm reporting to you, I'm sorry, I've got my own notes all mixed up here, is to include information on those pieces. So our monthly reports are sent directly, include customers' name, destination, mileage, demographic information, monthly units of service. We have an agreed upon minimum number of units of service. We've agreed to outreach and public education for the services that we provide as well. And so that's what we're reporting on today, are those things. So what you can see here in this report, our units of service for January, February, and March, the number of clients served, new clients, unduplicated, total miles, in general, unduplicated medical and unduplicated non-medical, and then specifically for ADRC, OFA, our units of service, client total, and new clients. Also included in this report is the outreach that we do. So our transportation coordinator, Barb Forkin, is, she's tremendous. She really is. She's so very effective with the people that we serve, with the drivers and the staff that serve under her, and genuinely has a heart for this work and for our community. And so asking her to do outreach, when I started talking to her about it, I pretty much said, yeah, you don't need, never mind, you don't need to prove it to me anymore. She's already doing so many things. And so here's a little bit of it. So in January, she spoke about our program at an aging in place luncheon. There were 14 people in attendance. In February, she compiled a list of the most visited doctors. She mailed, emailed, faxed, did in-person visits to give them flyers to display in their offices. And she also works hard to develop relationships frequently. So several of those are with Melissa, who's a nurse social worker in Salem, Cambridge, and Greenwich. And she's given her an application and flyers, and she's also done the same with Linda at Wound Care and many different departments at Glens Falls Hospital. Naomi gave Barb the renewal forms that were needed for the donation requests that we hand out to the clients when we're serving them, and those, any donations go directly into the envelopes that are sent directly to Jane's office. So she completed that mail out and is updating my information, and this is for next quarter, but Barb plans to attend the next library luncheon at the next senior lunch at the Pepper Library on April 24th. She generally goes to those almost every month. The first 3 months, the first quarter of this year, she didn't have, I guess the dates weren't posted, she said. Actually, that was on the website, and I'm not sure what else was happening, but for some reason she didn't go to those, but she often goes to those and interacts just specifically with the seniors there at the lunches to make sure they know what services are available.
That's today.
That is today. Yep. So she'll be there tonight. Any other questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Or mental health.
All right, so, my one item this morning is a request to use the county logo for some promotional, material. But a little bit of background on this, 2 years ago, there was a group that came together focused on, opioid addiction problem. Hometown versus Earth, they called it. It was a coalition, it was some local community agencies got together with local government agencies, law enforcement, DA's office, et cetera. And this, they called themselves Hometown versus Herald, sort of became their logo name. Then there was another group that formed after we did some crisis intervention training with law enforcement. There was a group that formed that was called the Law Enforcement and Community or Community Services Task Force, I guess. Is what that group termed themselves. And then it turned out after we were having several meetings that a lot of the same people were in the same meeting. So those two groups came together and they formed a new group that was called Axis. And Axis then developed some subgroups, kind of like little work groups. And one of the work groups out of the Axis was one focused on promoting mental health awareness. And so one of the activities they've developed is something called Brainstorm and Chalk the Walk. So they Brainstorm has a couple of events. They do a fall event, it's like a community agencies come together, they do some mental health awareness, tabling, et cetera. But in the spring, they do this event that's called Chalk the Walk. And all these agencies that are listed here, many of them have social media. I apologize, I tried to copy the flyer, didn't really come out very well, but they do some kind of slick looking things that are online. Look a little better when you see them online. But these agencies promote through their social media this idea of Chalk the Walk, and they encourage people to write their own driveway, sidewalk, whatever, write messages that are positive about mental health or something like that. Take pictures, you send them in, they post them, etc. Then they also have this event in City Park in Glens Falls on May the 29th, where they chalk the walk surrounding the city park there in Glens Falls. But in any event, they would like to be able to use both Warren and Washington County logos, along with the agency logos. And again, this copy didn't come out very well. The actual picture does have the full logo, et cetera. So my apologies for that, but. So basically that's my request, is to have permission from these agencies and their promotional materials to use the county logo.
Any approvals from the legal side?
Not that I'm aware of, it's asked them to bring it to the community. I'll move it through.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Oh, okay, second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? passes.
All right, my understanding is that all we need is committee level approval. Is that correct? Is approval of the board. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Youth Bureau. Sue?
Good morning.
Could be.
Early in the job, I think, so.
Sorry.
But my bottom is that. I'd like to start with, if you don't mind, the resource allocation plan. That's the black and white with the numbers. This was the plan that we have to submit. And we discussed this, I think, at the last committee meeting, and gave me permission to submit the resource allocation plan. Well, it was denied for a couple reasons. One being that the Youth Bureau Administration on page 2, under the YDP funding, we were told in the LCM that the funding, that YDP remained the same and all funding could remain the same. And for the last 3 years, we had put 23,345, give or take a couple of dollars, and I think that was just based on what the state had allowed. Well, they then this year said that we couldn't go over 15%, which brings it down to the $8,979 max that we can put on that line. So then we were thinking about, okay, what are the needs in the area and so on and so forth. So we started preliminary conversations with the Hudson Falls Police Department last year because they were having a lot of issues at Derby Park. And so we had a few gameplay days in which we engaged some of the youth at Derby Park to try to engage them in positive recreation instead of, damaging the park and some of those things. And then we had some preliminary conversations about doing a community restoration in which youth that commit what would have been a crime, something within the park, damaging equipment, vandalizing, any of those types of things. Instead of being kicked out of the park, or getting an appearance ticket for probation, they would then have to do community restoration within the park. So it was really just preliminary conversations, a few gameplays. So we thought that this could be a perfect use of the remaining $14,366 if we were to actually have a program, a specific purposeful program that targets these kids that just hang out at the park to keep them engaged, and then also work with the police department to really fine tune that community restoration. We thought this might be a good opportunity for this year only to use that remaining funds. So part of the process was we had to reach back out to our youth advisory board to get their permission for these 2 changes, specifically on this section of funding, and they did approve it. So I would need your permission to move forward. But there's one other change on a separate set of funding, which was the youth team sports. They declined our Southern Adirondack School Play Target Association funding that as that it did not meet the intention of the legislation. So that was their reason for the denial, even though it met all of the specs. So we would make the recommendation that Hartford Youth Commission had reached out to us and had an application already ready. They missed the deadline and we had already allocated the funds. So we would like to replace Southern Adirondack with the Hartford Youth Commission for the same dollar amount. They're going to enhance their youth baseball and softball program. So I just need permission from the committee to resubmit the resource allocation plan with these changes.
Yeah, second. Any discussion?
Does that have to go to finance?
There's no financial change, it's just,
One line to another.
yeah, not even, it really stays the same as far as finance.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think we had discussed it at the time we were going to submit it, and we knew in our hearts of hearts probably wasn't going to be approved. Because of what it was, if we put pickleball in there, we'd let you in no trouble.
Yeah.
But because we do what we really do in, the country, we looked upon and said, no, we're not going to do that. I just think that becomes overreach, and I'm not, certainly not aimed at you, it's aimed at our government overall, that there's a time when it becomes overreach.
Our friends.
So I'm sure the chairman can discuss it more than we can.
Well, maybe it could be pickleball, fishing games that became clay shooting.
That's right, right.
Yeah, well, I hope we get the return on investment that Derby Farm.
Right, I think I will try to track some numbers to see what it was pre and how many times that they were arrested and given an appearance ticket versus the programming last year. And the goal is to really get those youth involved with those adults that are within the park. So it really isn't something that's sustainable that will keep going necessarily, but if we can kind of get that involvement from the adults that are use the park also to engage the kids, that would be the goal.
It's also hard to measure the things that didn't happen because of. I mean,
Right,
that's hard to put your finger on, what didn't happen because of the.
yeah, I mean, we also, on the flip side, we're also usually those are also the kids or some of them that end up in our programming anyway, so we can kind of build out those relationships, I guess, we get a step above. But then moving on, I have the annual plan. I won't discuss the, sorry.
Voted on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. I'll only be talking about the youth bureau piece. I'll save the alternatives for the public safety meeting, if that's okay. So as a highlight, we did just get some recent funding or notification from our Association of New York State Youth Bureau that YDP funding for this coming year will be level funding, so we don't expect that's decreased. Runaway and homeless youth funding, and I'm referring to page 4, that is increased 1.4 million. How that rolls out to be determined. Youth sports and education funding, we knew that would probably at least remain the same or have a slight bump, and that is going to remain the same, but with no infrastructure dollars into that line this year, and that was the 10,344, I think. That could be used, but they did keep youth team sports. So for next year, youth team sports, they put 10 million in the budget for youth team sports. So that will be rolling out next year. That was a bit of a surprise. And so on page 4 is all of the programs that were funded last year. The rec programs, of course, are on the left, and then some of our community-based programs and the youth sports. One of the core functions is that administrative piece of, facilitating those dollars from the state to make sure that they get into the rec programs in our community. And then another function is kind of taking a look at anywhere where we can fit and fill a need. And that's where we work with DSS and with utilizing our STSJP funding. That's potential, and that is increasing next year. 11.376 million for this program, and a slight increase of 3 million, according to the update from our association. So STSJP might see a slight bump, but we've been able to not only add youth employment, a youth employment program in which, 11 youth participated last year. For oftentimes those youth are used to either, depending on their age, mow lawns, we clean all the picnic tables during the fair. We do a lot of prep work before the fair to move garbage cans. We put all the garbage cans out, the recycling containers, all of those pieces. And then they do things that the other projects like, car washing, they cut brush at the Little League, Fort Edward Little League, roadside cleanup. And things like that. A couple of the older youth participated in painting the enlistment center in Hartford. And then we added a positive youth development pre-pins program, which really is targeting those youth that are before they get to pins. And I know I put it on a note and I didn't add it there, but I think there was 3 youth that were in our pre-pins program that then transition into full pins. So that's not too bad. We had 39 referrals, 33 open, it's a completely voluntary program. So our caseworkers really have to engage the families.
So what is the age range of the youth you're looking at?
So for this particular PYD pre-pins, they have to be, 7 and above generally. We have a lot of referrals for those that are like 8 years old. I know, with parents who are having challenges getting their kids to go to school. So school attendance is really a huge focus for the pre-pins program. We work closely with Cambridge School District, Hartford, Granville, Whitehall, a little bit of Hudson Falls for the pre-pins. There's a few referrals from Hudson Falls, but Hudson Falls does have maybe a past coworker, Mike Ray, that works with, he's hired by the school district to work with truancy issues for that school. So we still do get some referrals. So it's a younger population than those that are in the juvenile community restoration program and referred from PINS into that program. It's a younger target.
So I just have a quick question also. So we talked about the youth sports and education. So that shows up on youth sports education
Yes.
infrastructure.
So the infrastructure dollars on this. The infrastructure dollars are that middle section.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
so that's the money that's going away.
okay, so the youth sports and education opportunity fund.
Yep.
We got that, so it's separate area for the youth sports.
Yep,
So my question is, if we didn't have this separate one for youth team sports, would they be listed up under youth sports separately? Did that just move it from one line to another or no?
no, so we were expecting youth team sports would just be not even existing
Gotcha.
next year. And then we weren't sure about the infrastructure dollars that they put under that line. So
Okay.
we really expected youth team sports to be off the table.
Gotcha.
The youth sports and education opportunity funding is the one tied to the online sports betting and in the legislation that they have to give us certain components.
And so the governor's budget is proposing, and I don't know where it all came out, but a lot to do with swimming and that. And we do a lot in our county. I know T-Grant has their own, Hudson Falls has things like that.
Yeah.
Train off the winter. Where is that, and how about like upgrades? Because if they ever have to upgrade our pool or one of us, I mean, these are big expenses. Is there gonna be opportunities for that?
Yes, there's apparently an RFP that will be coming out for the New York Swims program. And according to the association and those that have been in those meetings and that there are dollars for exactly that, upgrading your facilities, creating new facilities, and it could be either pool or open water. So Greenwich Beach, I don't know what the status is with that, but that might be something. As soon as the,
Lauderdale is owned by the state, so there should be a huge opportunity since they own it.
yeah, to be determined about that. I haven't seen any details as to, I know that the push was on, like, of course, in the city to create those open water pools, like those blow up pool structures in the lakes or in the rivers. So I know there was a push for that, but even for our areas, there should be some dollars, and as soon as I get them, I'll pass the RFP to town to
Is our
really do it.
contract about Lauderdale, like, greater run on that?
I just talked to Matt about that yesterday, I think, and asked that question, because I seem to recall it was the end of this year.
It's coming up real quick.
Yeah, so he was going to that contract. Take a look, but I think it's the end of this year.
But there might be some huge opportunities for us there.
There may be, I haven't, there wasn't a lot of guidance as to what that exactly includes, other than there may be dollars available to upgrade your
By
facilities.
December, the guys.
That would be nice. On that note, though, we do provide, of course, the lifeguarding certification. We took that role on a couple of years ago, only because we had staff that really had an interest. So we have 3 staff that are lifeguard instructors. We have 1 staff that can do water safety instructor assessments, which camps need in order for youth to go into the water. They need that assessment. And then we have 4 staff that can provide CPR, AED, and first aid instructor certifications. So we have been able to train, last year we trained 26 new lifeguards with waterfront. We had 7 lifeguards with waterfront recertification. We had 16 trained in CPR AED for professional rescuer, which is a component for lifeguards. They need their yearly AED lifeguarding for professional rescuer in order to stay current for lifeguarding. And then they need every 2 years, they need to recertify in the water portion and do the CPR. And then, so it really is an ongoing real challenge. And we know that we really, the parks usually keep them for 3 years. And then after they graduate from college, they move on to, other jobs or things like that. So it's kind of a recurring piece. So, yeah, but our facilitators are fantastic. We have 3 people that volunteer. Gretchen Stark, Stephanie Randalls, and then Stephanie's son that kind of volunteer to help us during these trainings, which really, if you ever get an opportunity, stop by when we have them, because they're very good. They're very good, and we take it very seriously, as we should.
Sure. Just comment, we might see a trend changing this year, because last year, 40, we struggled to get people for our beach. This year, we've only got 3 people that signed up to do it.
Right,
So,
right.
that's-
We do try to target the areas, like, I think Lauderdale might be short-staffed this year. If I know, we may end up doing another June training as soon as it's very difficult to do a training in the lake or open water. It's easier in a pool, and Hudson Falls allows us to use their pool, but only during vacation weeks. And so we'll have to wait until school's up to see if we'll need, because I think we will need just to staff the parks efficiently. I think we may need another full training, but that will really just be specifically to staff our parks. So, so on that piece, we'll go back to, I'll go to Safe Harbor. So we still have the Safe Harbor program, and we received 20 referrals for Safe Harbor this year. And those are youth who are vulnerable to trafficking. And we receive those referrals from DSS. Oftentimes there's somebody that has been identified in the DSS case workers. And then we provide some programming around, oftentimes, safety around online components. And it's a program where those 20, it's not a start here and there. It really is using the Youth Bureau as a resource. So whenever, not only when it's an active case and you're working with them directly, but they can always come back if they have issues. And then another core function is just to support positive youth development programming. And those are the things that we do, such as Winterfest or the fun days that we do at Lake Lauderdale to relieve the pressure of so many people on the beach. So we have some games that we offer when we know there's going to be heavy traffic camp days at the park. Sixth grade, community service day, that's something that, yeah, I'm hoping that this year they do it also. The sixth graders in Cambridge come to Lake Lauderdale Park, they do the raking and they wash the picnic tables and they spend like 2 hours of community service at the park. So that's kind of been a nice collaboration with that group of kids. Washington County Fair, I discussed the, the washing the picnic tables and those types of things, but we also provide resources. We have our booth at the fair, we're the button people. But it's a good opportunity to talk to parents and give them resources about what's available. Safe Sitter, that's an ongoing as needed, when programs reach out to us. We have a Safe Sitter class going on June 8th in Greenwich. And then I neglected to put in this report, Reality Check, which was a Greenwich Parent Teacher Association that we participated in, a reality check event. And this year was the second year that we participated in that. And it's really a chance for students in Greenwich School to go through a program that mimics what life would be like in budgeting. It's all about budgeting. We are the little luxuries booth, so we're the ones that get them to spend a lot of money on their hair products and things like that. And then at the end, when they have not enough money to pay their bills, they have to come back to us and readjust their budget. So that's been a nice collaboration with a nice group of Greenwich, and I neglected to put that in this report completely. And then lastly, we have the Warren County contract. So with our duties being mostly the administrative component of the all things youth bureau. So this youth bureau process that you do here, we mimic that and do that for Warren County, and that was the contract that's for $110,000. And then our differential response we provide for Warren County, and that was the second year of funding, and that's $5,000. So we have our Warren County components. Oversight agencies, we have 2 departments through OCFS, and then annual plans. I have listed the annual plans on page 10 that we take part in or complete in conjunction with DSF. Any questions on the youth archive?
I'm the Safe Sitter
Not
program,
much going on.
due to the change in parenting, availability of parents, there's a lot of brothers and sisters not taking care of kids. Is there a chance to get into the school more and teach kids how to keep their siblings safe, and is it an opportunity to expand that?
It could be an opportunity to expand. We have several Safe Sitter instructors. It's really very much designed at babysitting as a business kind of component, but they recently came up with like home alone program that's kind of similar, except it's not focused on, okay, what do you need to do to be a safe sitter? So we could take a look at that. It's a bit of a time consuming program, so I would say it's not on our priority, but it's something that we enjoy doing on a regular basis. Or I think next year our goal will be to have at least 4 classes in Washington County of Safe Sitter. So it's kind of Greenwich Youth Commission always reaches out to us, so we do a couple classes a year in Greenwich. Others are welcome to come to that class. And then we've done them in Granville. We really want to target Whitehall. They're doing some good things up there, so we want to target Whitehall and maybe do a class at the rec center in Whitehall this year.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for all your help. Okay, next we have public health. Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
A few things. The first on the agenda is the medical director contract. We have a contract with Dr. Guerra, which we've had for years. But every year per our diagnostic and treatment operating certificate regulation, we are supposed to bring it to the committee and discuss that contract. And let committee know if we're satisfied or if we have issues with that contract or the services that are being provided. So I'm just here to report that we are very happy with the contract. Dr. Garrett is always available to us when we have questions. So it's more of an informational, so I can have it for when they come to do their audit that I've presented that contract. But we are very happy with the services that are being provided under that contract.
Do we need a motion for anything?
I don't believe so. It's more just informational that I presented it and that we're happy with that contract.
It's in your budget.
Yes. And then I just have some program updates, just some quick things. We did have 2 successful rabies clinics. So far this year, both clinics were full, one in Whitehall and one in Granville. And then our next clinic is May 15th in Argyle. So that registration will start within the next couple weeks or so, for that clinic. So those have been very popular this year. The next is I would like to request, to be able to spend $200, for the LEAP, education opportunities. Normally, we would donate $200 towards their community garden, and we would buy plants. We've done this each year. It is 100% funded, through our lead poisoning prevention, program. So this year, it's a little different. There's not the community garden, but they'll be doing something like in the classroom with the students or the families. So we would like to be able to purchase $200 worth of seeds, to be able to promote that as well.
Just a procedural thing. If it's in your budget, you've already programmed, do we need to do that?
Just need to go to finance, it's already budget.
If it's in the budget, it doesn't need.
Yeah, I just thank you for the information.
Okay.
I don't think, you do that every year and it's budgeted. and that's
Yeah,
the
I
purpose
think we were looking at it more of like, it's more of an incentive giveaway that we're gonna be purchasing that money, so we are kind of following that policy. But if it's something we don't have to bring, that's wonderful.
If you're just buying seeds and not giving them cash, I don't think you're.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next thing I wanted to bring up was the lead service line inventory. That deadline is coming up for the municipal water authorities within the towns and villages. It is due October 16th of 2024. I had sent out information to about a year ago, and I just recently, the report has to be submitted to the Glens Falls district office because they handle the environmental. I did speak with them yesterday. The only town I think that has submitted at this point is Salem. So what we'd like to do, with your permission, is do some sort of joint messaging with the New York State Department of Health District Office in Glens Falls, to really try to promote that, because residents have to also report if they have lead service pipes within their home. There has to be that inventory complete by, it's a revised lead and copper rule from the federal government. So we'd like to work with them to get messaging out to folks that they are gonna have to report this. I don't know how the towns and villages are handling that reporting, how they want people to report to them. So that's something we'd like to work with those municipalities as well to figure out how they're having people report, so that inventory can be complete by the deadline in October. So just looking for permission to work with the district office and getting that messaging out.
I'll move that. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to give you an update on the New York State budget that was passed. Thankfully, our rabies funding was restored. That was something that was originally taken out of the budget. So we're happy that happened. There was also the approval of a 5% increase for the early intervention providers. I don't have an analysis of how that will affect us at this point, because there's an additional 4% rate add-on if you're considered a rural or underserved area. We're waiting on clarification from the state whether we would be classified as rural. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. So we're just waiting on clarification from the Bureau of Early Intervention to see if we're also going to have to do that additional 4%. So it could be up to a 9% increase for those providers, but at the very minimum, it would be 5%. increase. And we do pay those providers after Medicaid has paid and after, if insurance was to be billed and paid, we do pay them out of our escrow on a bi-weekly basis. So there would be an effect to us. We just don't know what that'll be at this point, and I can bring that back once we have clarity on what, if it's gonna be 9% or 5%, that will be paid. So just information there. The other thing, they did amend the labor law. This is related to the COVID paid sick leave. As you know, it was supposed to sunset in July of 24. They did extend that, so now it will not sunset until July of 25. So that's just more for awareness. The other thing that I wanted to make sure you were aware of that was in there, they did pass granting local governments the authority to develop a local law to shut down illicit cannabis shops if they were to open within your communities. So I wanted to make sure you were aware that that is out there. Right now it would be the Office of Cannabis Management that would be the ones that would come in and shut down those shops. But this particular law that was passed would give localities the authority to develop a local law, so they could do that. So it's very specific in the law, how that would roll out, but I just want to make sure that you were all aware that that is an opportunity, to be able to have more control over that. So just so you're aware of that.
I don't know who would answer this question, but are we aware of any, do we have any county? Anybody?
Illegal.
Illegal.
Illicit cannabis shops.
We're all illegal.
No, I was just curious, I don't know.
There are.
Would it be in some of the vape shops? Is that what you find?
They're the most common.
Is it? Because I've noticed the proliferation of vape shops in Greenwich.
And they usually advertise like Delta 9 and things like that. Wow.
That's 5% here.
That's from law enforcement experience. It's not experience.
Do we have?
I haven't seen a single one.
Make it light. There are.
Different amount that we're able to spend. What you talked about in that deadline.
Oh, the COVID sick leave, that was just more for your awareness.
Right, but is that money we have on hand that isn't spent? Or is it just, it can come under the host guidelines at a different rate? I guess.
Yeah, so our grant money didn't go towards that.
So I was gone.
Well, we have funds left, that are unspent at this point, but they're very, very targeted for specific purposes. For instance, we're buying a new, freezer for our vaccine.
Yep.
So that we could use our COVID money for. But when it comes to the COVID sick leave, that's not money that we would be able to use our grant funding for.
So it's just for us to be able to provide a different rate of pay or something according to, or what is the reason for moving the date? Why isn't it just ended?
I don't know if they think it's gonna spike again, over the winter, so they wanna make sure that people are protected. The other part of that, which you have to be under an isolation or quarantine order in order to get that COVID sick leave pay, which there are no more isolation and quarantine orders.
Right, that's what I'm trying to
So-
understand.
So it's just a little bit, it is different for healthcare workers, so it will affect public health. We are under a regulation where we have to be out so many days, if we have a COVID positive test. So that is where the COVID sick leave would come in, is for any healthcare entity, which would be public health.
Oh,
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah,
that. I'm over here going.
I was trying to clarify where that was all coming.
No, it would really, I don't know if there's other departments within the county that would have people that qualify as healthcare workers.
Only
but
public
I
health
think it's
position.
Yes. So it would really be public health that would, and the jail that would have COVID sick leave at this point. Sorry.
No, it's, I feel much better now.
Any other questions?
I wanted to add one more thing to that, the illicit cannabis, law that was passed, giving you that authority. Also in that language, it also increases the penalties for landlords where a tenant or business is engaged in those sales. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that those penalties are significant for the landlords, if they are found to be letting their tenants operate in illicit cannabis. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a very,
What authority do they give the landlord to stop?
no,
I don't know.
Very little under the new.
no, it's just another purchase.
That's horseshit.
Yeah, that's what it is. You're right. I agree with you.
So that, note, thank you very much.
You'll find a motion on that. It's getting voted on, right?
Thank you.
Okay, well, hey, you're sieging it.
They don't do anything with them when they get them. Management.
Office.
Just.
Yeah, I don't know if they haven't. Hold up.
Oh, I haven't. Oh, sorry, Tina, I was watching you looking really.
Oh, you're good.
really- I'd like to start with the first agenda item, and that's Older Americans Month. May is recognized as Older Americans Month across the United States. And at this time, I would like to make a request for Washington County to proclaim May as Older Americans Month. And with that request, I have some proclamations that I have prepared that I would like to have the chairman sign as well.
I'll make that motion.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Chairman doesn't want to sign in.
Motion passes.
I hope you use the full pen.
You can editorialize if that's needed.
So this year, our office will be recognizing Sue Allen from Fort Ann and Irene Baldwin from Cambridge to be representing Washington County at the state level. On May 14th, I will be accompanying both Irene and Sue at a statewide celebratory event in Albany. This is going to be our first in-person Older Americans Month event that we've had since pre-COVID. So it's one of my favorites to attend. And so I'm very excited to have that back in motion. I would also like to share that on May 16th, the Council of Seniors, which consists of the senior clubs across Washington County, are going to be coming together and having a celebratory event of their own. We'll be supporting them through our nutrition program. And this is the time when all the clubs honor and recognize their own identified senior of the year. So we do, again, have a luncheon for that event on May 16th. And certainly if anybody here is would like to attend, let me know and I can make that reservation in advance.
Yeah, I was wondering if we would weave in the quantifier in rural Washington County to help out public health and that, get rural and.
You lost me, I'm sorry. I'm trying to know, and I feel like it's a joke, but I'm like.
I'm trying to weave in this, so the state will consider us a rural community, I guess.
Yes, yeah. In the OFA world, we've made it very clear that we are rural. So
Use that
sure,
title.
thanks, that data. Yeah, so it's on May 16th, and it's gonna be at the Hudson Falls American Legion.
Yeah, what was that for older Americans asking for
The age. So according to, at the federal level, it's 60 and older.
Oh, nice.
And that's in accordance to the Older Americans Act. Right, and that kind of also leads a lot of the Office for Aging programs for people who qualify for items like our nutrition program.
Yeah, tell your friends to get discounted all parks. Serious coffee at me.
Yes.
In past years, I brought our Washington County honorees to the May Board of Supervisors meeting, and so I wanted to, I guess, share that and see if there's still support to do it, or.
Yes, please, Chairman, is nodding yes. So,
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of other, sorry.
No, tell them to say.
I have a couple of other items that aren't on the agenda. I would like to request permission to appoint Bruce Ferguson of Salem to our Office for Aging Advisory Council. Bruce will represent Salem, and he sits on there.
So moved. All those in favor? Aye.
I'm not related.
Yes.
Hey,
I didn't know who he is. Moving right along. Thank you, Bob.
it's not the same light.
The next item that I have, kind of goes in the flow of the other departments, is speaking about the governor's budget. So earlier this year, we talked about our department and the community coming together to advocate for older adults and to raise awareness of the need to increase state funding to support non-Medicaid individuals to age with independence and dignity in their home. So I can share with you at this time that there was no additional funds added to that budget. I do have a letter that was prepared by our Association on Aging in response to the budget, and it is something that I would like to request permission to publish in our Community Connections newspaper. It's a lengthy letter, so I don't know how we want to proceed. With permission to advance it. I can share with you that we have.
Just a bit.
Sure, so pretty much it speaks about how the budget doesn't acknowledge the deficit across New York State. There are several waiting lists, and based on those waiting lists, it was estimated that based on the request for 40 million to be added into the budget, and that 40 million was based on the existing wait list at that snapshot in time. So at this time, there's concern about non-Medicaid individuals being able to receive services and supports, again, which are through Office for Aging, to be able to stay and remain in their home and to support their families, so that individuals don't have to go into a nursing home. As you know, most individuals who do go into a nursing home end up spending their entire life savings and end up eventually going on Medicaid. So this letter really speaks to the fact, it does duplicate a lot of the verbiage that I had mentioned before, and does mimic the past article that I put in the Community Connections paper. One piece that I can share with you is that AARP has reached out to our association, and they are also highly disappointed. AARP is an organization, an advocacy organization that many people are aware of. They have a very strong voice, and they have asked to partner with us at the local level as well, and work together to try to bring awareness again to the fact that the budget didn't show any increase in funding. And so at this time, ARP is putting out an initiative and did ask local Office for Agings to reach out to individuals who receive services and to kind of get their statement or get a picture of them and posting it on social media platforms. I can share with you that over the last 2 months, I have put out a request to our program recipients, and it was a letter saying just want to handwrite a statement or sign on to this this campaign to kind of highlight the need for increased funding. That was a huge success. I don't know how many, I didn't count how many I had, but I can say the stack is probably about that big. And the statements, I really want to go through and pull out some of the statements that our residents have made in those reports, because they are truly impactful and most certainly highly emphasize the need that these individuals want to stay in their homes for as long as possible.
Mr. Gina, you said the budget stayed the same as it was for last year? Is that what you're saying? Okay, because on the back and would you know where, on the back said the budget only reflects a $700,000 increase.
Yeah,
So do we know what they took
so
there from to get that 700?
So that's the same increase that they put in last year's, and I believe it's either a combination of the Senate and Assembly, or it's from one of those. Where that's kind of they had recognized last year that the budget was stagnant, and they agreed to put in extra, so that's what that funding is.
Okay, so then they took, in order to balance it, they took the 700,000 from another part of the budget.
I'm not sure,
Okay.
like where they took that to put it
Yeah,
in.
so
here.
if it stayed the same, but they increased the 700,000, they had to take it from someplace else. Right?
I'm not sure where they took it
Okay.
from.
I just, when I read that, it caught my eye, it was someone that, they didn't increase it, but then the letter said
Well, I
that
see what you're
the average
saying.
was
Okay, I'm
$700,000.
So yeah, so that is additional outside funding, so
Gotcha.
that's not within, correct, okay, thank you, for highlighting that, but yeah, so that is from, like, so the state assembly took that money, and where they took the money from, I'm not sure, and put it
Gotcha.
in,
Okay.
but they also did that last year, so that's not
It's not new money.
correct.
It is, it
It's
increased.
new, but it's not.
It increased.
It increased, but it.
Their program increased 700,
Overall, the budget-
700 million, excuse me.
Which is, yeah, same as.
Overall, the budget went up big,
700,000.
overall.
So Gina, you're asking us for permission to put it on your website?
Website and to put it in our community connections.
And they do know, like to also know. Chairman,
I do the ARP stuff. I see this great chest pounding. And I feel the same, this about the way I feel about raising awareness for Parkinson's disease or something. First, we're all aware of it. What's the action that you want to happen? I go down and talk to the legislature. What do you want me to tell them to do? Take X number of dollars out of Tammy's budget, something to do with you, or what do you want to happen?
So at the state level, I wouldn't know how that would transfer around, but if anybody wants to speak at legislative state level, I have plenty of material to share. I think what the biggest piece and the biggest impact is to share our wait list numbers, to show how our county has overmatched the funding sources that we've gotten from the state and federal level. Right now, and I don't have the number in front of me, but the overmatch that Washington County provides to keep us going is tremendous. An example is the nutrition program. There are several counties across the state that the counties will refuse to provide that additional match funding, and they have a huge wait list for home delivered meals. So I think kind of highlighting that, and most certainly the statements from the individuals themselves, I think, we can talk as much as we want, but most certainly those written statements that I got speak volumes, and I think that is, those are your voters, those are the people out in the community. They're living that life, and so I think getting that realistic picture.
Nobody disagrees with that. It's like seeing the puppies in cages on the ads on TV. That this is a big need. What do you want?
Advocacy, please, at any opportunity we.
What do you want me to advocate for? What do you want?
Or are you talking a specific funding amount?
Yeah, how much do you want? How much do you need to do to take care of this?
So most certainly, I don't have that figure in front of me because I.
I'm
would like to
not
look at
trying
it.
to opinion.
Yeah,
I'm not being adversarial here. Just,
Right.
if you wanted to fix this problem, what would it cost?
on the back, it says.
You're asking for 40 million.
the back, yeah, so the back speaks about
He's not asking
state
for
level.
40. What's
Correct.
Washington County?
So the Washington County, that can go in many different ways, right? Because I can pull out how much our programs are overmatched by county dollars and share that figure with you and say, hey, this is something that, this is what we need. Otherwise, we're gonna, as a county, we could pull that funding, and then what happens to the constituents of Washington County? So you could go by that figure. And
and also add in the individuals that we currently have on wait list and say how much that would cost, and then.
I think that's the information I think we need to add.
Sure. That makes
And I
absolutely.
can't, you know, we advocate for $40 million on the part of the state. You know, that'll take care of Manhattan just fine, we won't get squat. What does Washington County want, is what I'm trying to figure it out here.
Absolutely.
So I can get on and say to JTSB, hey, we need X number $100,000 to fix this problem. Do you see what I mean?
I do, and I can say that Senator Ashby has been a great advocate for us. Most certainly. So, most certainly. But yeah, so I think, you know, when you compile all that together, when you look at the statistics, you know, the demographics of Washington County, you pull together the wait list figures themselves and look at how much Washington County pays, in overmatch dollars, I think that you have a pretty solid objective
Yeah, I think
case
that would be-
to advocate.
add it.
And that's something that I would do.
Gina, I hope I'm not offending you, but, what Chairman Hankey said about, advocating, and working with our legislators, so I think is the way to go. I personally am not comfortable seeing, things like this on our website. We may believe this and so on, but I just don't think our website is the place to put it. It's my personal view. I think advocacy is the way to go.
Website, and the permission of the request was to put it in the community connections newspaper. So I guess I don't know if you feel.
Well, personally, I don't feel comfortable, but open it up to discussion.
I mean, isn't this a state level? I mean, this is from the Association on Aging in New York, not Albany. So this is their letter, right?
So- This is the Association on Aging letter, and the Association on Aging is, their office is in Albany, but they represent all the local district OFAs. So there are like our NYPWA or NYSARC. They are our association at the state level.
Sure.
Right.
Right, well, a couple of things on that. First of all, as farmers, we can all go there independently and get nothing. So if you want anything, you have to come as a whole group. And that's why I think the letter's important. And there's no reason to sugarcoat anything about what the state's done. They have done nothing for the elderly in a long, long time. All the rates, with Medicaid in the nursing homes, things like that, they haven't changed in 50 years. So they have really let down the aging population, and then they wonder why they're all moving to Florida and the South. Well, nobody wants to be here after a while when they get treated like that. They need to hear that they're getting treated poorly. There's nothing happening right now in New York State that is good for the future of any elderly, let alone our young people. There's a lot of things that are bad. This one here is a pretty, I think it's a reasonable story. I don't have a problem with that. My bigger question is, when you talk about waiting lists and things like that, we don't have anyone in Washington County on a waiting list for Meals on Wheels, right?
That is correct.
We're serving everybody.
Yes.
I think I want everybody to know that,
Yes, and that is based on the county's generosity.
that our funding
Correct.
makes that happen. So I think it's important they know that we're doing our job, but the state has badly let down our aging population.
I personally think that a resolution stating several of these things, hey, we're stepping up, we're adding to this, whereas, you know, Washington County's had to do this, and this to make up for the lack of state funding. Whereas now, we've done this again, at the state level, we're now calling upon our representatives to do, therefore be it resolved, whatever you want them to do, specifically for, at least for Washington County. We can certainly do a resolution. If it goes through the board, it would be a, you know, pretty strong advocacy statement, as well as I think it needs some specifics as to what we're asking them to do.
If
And
that,
I think that would solve Jim's problem with the kind of queasy about the state thing, stuff like
so,
Chairman, the only thing with that, I'm gonna put a different spin on that. It's, we belong, our county belongs, our Oxford region belongs to this association. Makes it very difficult for our director to be able to build up credibility and be able to call to the association if we need something specific to have the support on. Because we are a member of that organization. It's apparently was put out by it's coming out from the association itself. That puts her in a very awkward position, for her to go down and say, if we have an issue that we need your support on, to have them say, hey, can you do a letter to help us out with this? I think that's, looking at it from that perspective, it's just a different perspective, because as a director of veteran services, many times I was in that same situation. Didn't philosophically agree with something, but knew that if we didn't, then when we needed the help, we weren't gonna have that extra push maybe to get something through that we needed.
Right, good point.
Now, Chairman, there's a high chance that the organization has a website. And maybe a higher comfort level for the board would be Gina's page could say there's an advocacy letter for the Association on Aging, click here to read. And that way we're not publishing the letter, but they can actively click the link to see the letter if they choose to. That might be a way to not publish the letter, but give them access to it.
But I think it's important to publish.
I think it's also important to remember that this funding is level it is now, but Washington County as a whole is aging. We're gonna have more and more people who choose not to move forward to care. We're gonna need more and more services in the future. I mean, we lost a substantial amount of population. Now, for instance, we can analyze that population. There's younger people and people that are less in need of services that are afford to move out of the state in the county. Whereas other parts of the state may have people coming in from other countries that is reducing their ages.
I don't think this is an issue that we should, tap dance around. I think we should approve this to be published on the website and in the paper, because it's an important issue, and it is a big failure on the state part to take care of our elderly. So I move that we,
And I'll second it for discussion.
that we approve the request, put it in the paper enough.
So there's a motion to approve in the second discussion.
A discussion, do we need to clarify, because Al had an idea of how to publish it, do we want to, it's your motion, do you
My
want
motion is to publish it straight on the county website.
was that your second?
Yes, sir.
Discussion on that.
I know we generally have a disclaimer more often than not on a number of our pages. I know Roger had one, so what we're putting on here is not necessarily.
If you watch it.
It's out.
It sort of takes away the.
I mean, the length, there certainly wouldn't be any issue with the length.
Well, the motion is to put it out as is. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just one opposed. Okay, passes.
so I get permission to
Yes.
put that on the website, and so am I putting a disclaimer?
Yeah.
Put it on there.
And just touching back on, the chairman's discussion on a resolution, there is a county, a rural county that did pass, a resolution about the budget that I can share.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can you email that to all of us so we can
Yes.
see it?
Right, maybe that's something to do here.
Well, that's what I was thinking, go to the next region and follow county.
Great, thank you, Gina.
Okay, so I do have, our OFA/ADRC annual report presentation for you today. I timed it, it was about 12 minutes, so I'm hoping that I can beat that number. It is on a PowerPoint. Yes, please.
This is the one you gave us, this is homework.
Well, I guess that's also open for, discussion, and, typically I bring the annual report in print to committee. This year I gave it out in advance, just hoping that you could go through it and, share any questions.
Ask if there are any questions.
I would just teach. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not Lisa, Al. Okay. Oh, actually, it should be that's the PDF of the report itself. It should be a PowerPoint on that.
It's gonna torture you.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. What measurement is that? Right.
Try to keep it under the table right now.
Camera? Oh, yeah, camera's not the.
Yeah, that's better. Belly up to the table.
The Jeopardy timer should be something. My apologies.
Let's go to the selling side.
15 slides, okay. 30 seconds per slide, should be good.
Should be able to put it on power, slideshow mode.
Oh, really?
It's up on the
Good job.
top. Should be able,
Underline now.
what do you want? The slideshow on the very top, should be able to do that, and it should, from the beginning, I'm sorry, from the beginning on the left. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay.
Go ahead.
Every year, DSS and OFA engage staff to join in on a photo contest. Staff submit
Have our attention, please.
photos, drawings that commemorate Washington County. The photos and drawings and artwork is then placed up for vote in an anonymous manner. This year, Heather Frisk, an adult services caseworker, she is a 19 years of service employee, won the honorary status of our 2023 annual report cover with her photo of Summit Lake in the town of Argyle. OFA and DSS have formed a partnership, which makes us an Aging and Disability Resource Center. We often call it ADRC. I'll be using the term ADRC and OFA interchangeably throughout my presentation when talking about our department. Today, I am going to focus on the programs and services that OFA takes ownership of. Picture here is our second place photo winner, Mindy Dudley's photo of Shelving Rock Falls in the town of Fort Anne. The funding of ADRC is supported by state, federal, and local funds and by a few grants. New York State Office for Aging is our official state agency that provides us all the guidance and is our central funding provider. Every funding source has its own unique set of guidelines and rules to include its own local match minimum requirement. So far, we have estimated expending 99.27% of our budget. Please note that we are still working on the 2023 final adjustments and hope to get closer to that 100% mark. In 2023, we did receive additional state funding, which allows us to decrease our budgeted local share. Guiding grant of our MOU with DSS is our New York Connects program. The collaboration between both departments is successful in providing a one-stop location for addressing the needs of our community members. Our co-location of staff and the training that they receive from both DSS and OFA and their respective state agencies gives all of our staff the knowledge they need to provide well-rounded services. Please know that our structure and the MOU with DSS and OFA is unique across New York State. The next two slides highlight our New York Connects program. In 2023, our New York Connects Information and Assistance Program continued to be greatly needed, resulting in 3,110 information and assistant records being entered into our database system. Here, I've highlighted two charts from the annual report that shows our 23 New York Connects data. Information requested, which is on your left, is what individuals initially came to us for, and the information provided, which is the chart on the right, is what the individuals actually left our office learning after our staff screened them. The pie chart shows that in 23, the majority of people presented to us with questions around their insurance and benefits information. The next highest was inquiries around home-based services. The bar graph on the right shows a comparison between 2022 and 2023. The orange bar is 22 and the blue bar is 2023. In 2023, the majority of the information we provided continued to be around home-based services and home modifications and repairs. You can also see that in 23, we had a significant increase in offering information around health, wellness, medications, mental health, and support groups and counseling services. The information on the left of the screen here shows the contacts we had with individuals 60 and older and 59 and younger. In 23, which was very similar to our data in 2022, we served over 3,000 people by either face-to-face contact, phone calls, and email. And as you can see here, our main mode of contact was by telephone. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the top areas of assistance provided. As you can see, our primary focus was again on connecting and linking consumers with programs, agencies, and services. Our New York Connects program also facilitates a long-term care council that consists of 200 members, maintains an online resource directory, offers options counseling and person-centered counseling, and provides public education in a variety of ways to include our long-term care council news digest and our community connections newspaper. This slide shows something new that we started in 2023. NYSOFA partnered with Intuition Robotics for the distribution of a free proactive care companion called LEQ. LEQs help keep users healthy, engaged, and informed while alleviating the effect of loneliness and isolation. While other devices that you may be familiar with are reactive, LEQ is actually proactively. LEQ proactively engages people by making suggestions on activities to do, or they will just automatically start playing the person's favorite music. LEQ suggests and initiates these conversations through artificial intelligence. For instance, it also does things like medication reminders. In 2023, we distributed approximately 10 LEQ companions to Washington County residents age 60 and older.
Do you have an extra one of those for the chairman?
We have a demo in our office. Anyone's welcome to come down and.
I met her last week. She's nice.
She was in need of repair today.
Sometimes she'll need a reboot.
After talking to you, she would need a remove.
Well, I think the biggest concern I have with that is telling you when to take your medication. If you're working for a few days and you didn't take your medication, once you get used to being told.
That was a good question.
Right.
Here is a snapshot that shows some of OFA's core services. I'd really ask everybody really reflect back to the actual report for detailed descriptions of each of these services. In 2023, transportation and personal emergency response systems stood out and showed changes in their data. Senior transportation services are provided by our contractor lead, which is what Shelley spoke about earlier. For a calendar year period, we went from 74 people in 2022 to 123 people served in 2023. Last year, we also started GoGo Transportation and served 6 individuals. And our MOU with DSS, we were able to provide transportation services for individuals who are receiving those, and that number doubled with one-way trips. A surprise for me when I was going through the data was looking at our emergency response devices. This dramatically decreased from 62 people served in 2022 to 39 people served in 2023. And in looking into it, what I learned is that insurance providers are now covering the cost of that device. And so when our staff meet with individuals and assess them, the one thing that we do look into is to see if their insurance covers it first before actually covering the cost ourselves. So that is the main reason for that change. Being a caregiver is truly one of the toughest roles a person can have. Caregivers are most in need of physical and emotional support. We assist caregivers with physical support like respite, daily tasks, meals, chores, companionship for their loved one, and case management services. The slide you're looking at here outlines the caregiver support services that we offer. In 23, the number of caregivers receiving case management services and respite services slightly increased. However, the number of people served for respite and supplemental services stayed about the same last year.
Do we contract that out?
Yes, we do. Not case management is done in, but in terms of respite or social adult day, we do contract out. In late 2023, and I think the chairman did ask about this before, we began receiving state guidance on the implementation of a new caregiver software program called T-Care. In addition, our case managers are learning to turn their focus from the care receiver to the caregiver when it comes to care planning. This shift isn't necessarily new to our the way that we have been proceeding in the past, but it is a shift in the way that we document services. So in 2024, we're going to go ahead and continue our journey on the redesign of our documentation in this new software program to include the rewriting of policies and procedures. As some of you know, our office serves both Medicaid and non-Medicaid individuals with personal care and consumer-directed services. The slide that I'm sharing with you today focuses on OFA's non-Medicaid in-home services. In-home services give individuals the opportunity to age safely in their own homes and communities. Here I've listed the providers, which you just asked about, that we contract with for personal care assistance, social medical adult day program, and consumer directed fiscal intermediary services. In 2023, some of the data was a surprise. Our consumer directed services decreased by almost half. And in looking into that, what we learned is that the reason for this decrease is that individuals were having a hard time identifying people in their life who was willing or able to assist with their care. In addition, we saw a number of individuals go into Medicaid services, which will then automatically make them ineligible for OFA. Another surprise was seeing personal care level 1 increased and personal care level 2 decreased. As we know, this number will always ebb and flow based on consumer need. In 23, more consumers were in need of level 1 services, which are kind of like your basic household chore type of service. And also there were more home care workers available for level 2 services. So the workforce also played a part in that. Social adult day services have remained the same over the last 4 years. When we do provide social adult day or medical adult day, usually that's offered as a source of respite for caregivers. This slide here is a snapshot of our nutrition services. In 2023, our data shows an increase in home delivered meals participants by 68 people, with an overall total of 81,351 home delivered meals being served. While we served 11,203 meals at our congregate and mobile site, this number of meals increased substantially from the previous year. It's also important to note that all of our home delivered meals recipients have to register for a program and go through what we call a comprehensive assessment. Whereas if an individual wishes to attend one of our mobile meal sites or pop-up meal sites, or attend one of the senior sites or congregate meal sites, they can enjoy that meal without having to go through the assessment piece, or they also have the choice to not register. So the number of people here, again, kind of put on the slide that it's an estimated unduplicate count of people, because we know that we're serving more people, just based on the fact that the meal count has increased from the previous year. We already spoke about the importance of May and the importance of proclaiming May as Older Americans Month. Just a reminder that last year we did honor Lorraine Bowen, and John Fillmore. What you see here are a few pictures of some of the amazing events we participated in throughout 2023. We supported the Council of Seniors with their Senior of the Year event and their spring and fall luncheons. In addition, we hosted our annual picnic, our public hearing, and our fall festival. We also conducted several, or participated in several outreach events where we had an information table and a variety of throughout the community. I wanted to pull out some pictures of people that are in the room today. So again, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has shown their support. So thank you very much for your attention to our annual report. And most certainly what I've shared with you today is absolutely a complete small little snippet of all the programs and services that we've provided throughout the year. So if anybody has any questions about the annual report or the data, you're welcome to discuss it here today, or you can reach out to me individually. You all received a hard copy. This is also posted on our website, so if anybody would like to again or share it with others, you can always refer them to our website.
Very well done. Thank you, Judge. Do you know LEQ companions have the ability to reach out to like 911 should there be an emergency, or is that outside of scope of?
So it is able to reach out to your emergency contacts. So you can put your emergency contacts into LEQ, and then if there's an emergency or LEQ, there's like some kind of artificial intelligence that, you know, that they can reach out to that person on behalf of the individual.
Waiver. So she's here, this is Tammy.
My annual report. I provided a copy of the report to all the board members, either in person or through your mailboxes. I invited questions as well, and I received one. So if you have more questions, please let me know.
Was it a good question?
Honestly, I didn't really answer it.
There you go.
His question was related to the number of CPS reports, and I believe specifically as to how they were broken out throughout the county was another thing that you had mentioned. I did end up pulling much past data and showed him that
there really is no rhyme or reason on our trends. And I've got more of that here today to be able to share as well. So, what I'm providing you, actually is just, things that I pulled together, in the absence of hearing any specific requests. I went through the report and I just got a few things I want to highlight. I want to start on the black and white side, and we can go to the colored side after. Anybody else need more? Have a couple extras. So, none of the charts that are on this handout actually appear as this in our, report supplement. This, what I made a point of doing was pulling together the past 3 years here so that we could look at trends, as it were. As I said, some of our trends, we really can't tell what it means, but, one of the things we just spoke about earlier this morning when, Shelley was talking about the usage and the increase in, requests for the food pantry, the funding levels for the SNAP program were dramatically increased during the pandemic period. And that's something that was done by the federal government. It wasn't anything that was controlled by us locally. So, if I had 2020 on here, I imagine that we might have seen a number that would have been closer to 11 million. But then you see 2021 was 17.7, 20.79, and then what it dropped to this year when those extra add-ons went away. And that was something that we spoke about last year when we saw it coming. I had said at that point that I thought that would result in an increase of people going to food pantries. We talked a little bit about, you know, what other impacts there might be. It is not something that I have seen as dramatically for the people that are coming into our office. But I think it is something that then, because people are already eligible for what they're eligible for us, I think that then they're going through other avenues to other agencies at that point. Another thing I'd like to show you in this chart that's on the left, just to specifically point out in our temporary assistance categories, which is the TNF and the safety net. TNF is the 100% federal. That is for families or people with children. And that obviously trended up considerably in 2023. That is 100% federal funding.
Why did that trend up so big?
More people were eligible, and I think some of that is a combination of their income going down. And our benefits had a little bit of flexing as to who was eligible for them and who wasn't. It
And are you
increased slightly.
also publicizing, where is that?
No, we're not publicizing it. However, there is a limit set by the federal government on people's availability to access TNF, and that maxes out at 5 years. So once somebody has received TNF for 5 years, if they're still eligible for assistance in New York State, they then switch to the safety net category. And that safety net category is what concerns me even more. We are seeing where there are more and more people that are simply no longer eligible for TNF, but they continue to meet the eligibility requirements for the safety net program, which is a state regulated program, but it is only funded by the state at 29%.
That's up 40% from last year.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
So is TNF driven by household income
Yes,
and the number of dependents?
yes,
And it would be-
yes,
okay.
yeah. Daycare took a tremendous step up. That really was largely attributed to the eligibility for that opened up tremendously. Again, something that I would have mentioned at the time, but I think that they went to 300% of the poverty rate being eligible for the child care assistance.
federal programming. Also, I'm not sure honestly if this was a state tweak to the federal program or if it was the federal program itself, but they increased the number of absences from care that they would also reimburse for. So if somebody was in a slot at a daycare center and they were not there, there would have been in the past more occasions where our funding would not have paid for that absence, but now it is to be able to secure those sites, those, for them to be able to have more providers willing to take the children that are paid for through subsidies.
Is the heat, more reflective of the season?
Yeah, this is difficult to break out in a calendar year when we're talking about heat. Yeah, I did notice that in the, what appears to be a spike in the 2022 year. Because heat goes by the season, I'm not necessarily sure that that was a spike specific to 2022, but it might have been the seasons around that. And it could have also been that impact of extra pandemic funding. So it's really difficult to read, but these numbers are supported by the other chart that's on the right. It shows what these categories are and gives the average monthly caseloads. So you can see that generally speaking, since 2021, there are very few of these categories or counts that have decreased. For the majority of it, we are talking about serving more people through these programs. Switching over to the colored side, this too is information that would be in the report for the as a unit of most often just 2023. There may have been sometimes comparison with 2022 as well, but I wanted to bring it together for the overall look. I initially highlighted in a couple of the charts things that I thought were significant impacts. The remaining charts don't have highlights, but that's simply because I forgot to do it. But I would certainly point out that we have had an uptick of JV type cases in our county. I think probably it's not just unique to our county.
I wouldn't say there's been so much an uptick, but it's been more serious, and the youth that are involved seemed, at least in a couple of cases, far less amenable to treatment.
Which then in that orangish colored chart in the middle of the page where it shows the JD referrals, the raise the age referrals, JCR and JEM, those are programs that are through the Youth Bureau and Alternative Sentencing. So the number of referrals that were going to these programs all took a significant increase. The length of time that they were on the electronic monitoring also increased. That is also to some degree outside our control and more within the scope of the courts. The number of JD foster care placements dramatically increased. And when we have a JD foster care placement, most likely they are going to go to a residential setting, which costs more than our family on foster care levels. So our foster care spending is going to tick up based on these numbers. I want to draw your attention to the CSE historical analysis chart that is at the bottom left. This is not something that is reported in the annual report, but I think that it is a further reflection of the difficulty in serving youth. CSE is Committee on Special Education, and in the school districts, each of them have a Committee on Special Education. They will provide special programming for children that are determined to have a need. And when they no longer can provide that programming locally, either within their own school district or through, for instance, a BOCES program, they send them to a residential program. Some of these youth may go just Monday through Friday and they're back home. And there are also youth that will go on a daily basis, but if they're transported back and forth each day, they're not paid for in the same way. But when they do get placed in this way, the county bears quite a burden of that cost as well. The rates, the way that it breaks down right now, the state has a 0 share in paying for the cost of any student that goes through CSE placement at the residential level. The school has a 56.84% share and the local share is 43.152. So of these costs and with this trend, which is showing that we had 10 referrals through the school districts in this current school year, the costs are going up. And it's another thing I want to bring to your attention. Put it on your radar. We really, each year when we're setting up our budget, I have our fiscal people contact the fiscal people within each school district to ask them what they anticipate for the numbers of kids that would be placed. Of course, it's a bit of a, guessing game for them as well. We try to budget for it. There was no budgeting for this spike. Of these 10, well, there's 10, that doesn't go, oh yeah, the white line goes up to the 10. Of the 10 this year, one of them was only placed for 2 weeks. But we have not been billed for that student yet. And 2 others were just placed within this calendar year. So again, it's really difficult for us to reflect how that's going to really pan out for us within the budget. Of the 10, they range between 9 years old and 18 years old. There are 4 that were under 11 and 6 that were over 14. And we believe at this point, cautiously, based on where we're looking right now about our spending, that we may be $400,000 under budgeted in our current 2024 budget. So I just want to tie it together. I think that there's been a dramatic shift in the difficulties that people are encountering with the teenage population. I hope that it really was more about the change in their socialization during the pandemic and all of the changes that happened then. And now hopefully we can shift back to, more socialization and appropriate, boundaries and that sort of thing for youth, and maybe we'll go back down again. But currently, the legal system, the child welfare system, the school system, we're all struggling with this impact.
So I think what you're gonna find is there's a range of ages that are gonna transition into this category over the next few years, right, that were impacted earlier in their development. We'll see the impact of it later in their life as they transition to this time in their life.
Yeah, that is the pessimistic.
Realistic.
Yes.
We have a bubble.
That's not something I considered, but you're right.
We have a bubble that was created not by us, but by circumstances, and it's not through the system yet, so.
Yeah.
Right, I hate to be more realistic. I don't think it's a bubble. It seems to be transferring to a lower age group now. And just because my wife's a school teacher and probably can only put up with that 1 more year, because it's getting worse and worse. And we're seeing a lot younger kids with a lot more needs, and parenting is the biggest lack. And even the people that you try to work with, either they're not concerned or you meet the parent, you're thinking, no wonder the kid's got the problem they got. It's just the way it is. And it's very interesting. I don't know how we're gonna reverse it because our state policies are nothing in the avenue of changing it. We're just letting it go. It used to be if a kid had a problem in the classroom, the kid got removed. Now you leave the kid in the classroom and the rest of the class leaves. It makes no sense to me. I don't know how you would ever fix anything under those circumstances. So I can only see it getting worse. My bigger question is on the CPS related foster care, because we started doing our own program. So these are all under our own program, the 3 years that you show here.
These are kids entering foster care
Right.
placement, yeah.
So those are all on our own now, because that's how long we've been at it, right?
Yes,
So
there may
Berkshire
be,
Doesn't bring them in anymore, but we still have some with.
they still can. And yes, we do still have kids that are placed through Berkshire. If we don't have a home for them, then we would be forced to look to Berkshire or Northeast or another agency that certifies and licenses foster homes within our county, or if necessary, outside of our county. That's the only place
So
we can find for the kid.
These are all these
Any-
ones, or these are Berkshire?
These are a mix. So of this, if I were to be asked what the level of success of our foster care recruitment program has been, I would say that it has been successful, but not in ways that I necessarily wanted it to be to start with. Initially, I was hoping that we would recruit a lot of people within the community that were willing to bring children into their home for foster care. What we have instead really done a great deal of recruitment on is required by the state law anyway, but it's looking to their family members. And so we have done a really good job of sending our workers out. They're called kinship champions, and they're talking with these families that are having difficulties and trying to find from them who else in your life might be able to be a support. And so then it can be kin-like, it doesn't need to be a relative. In one circumstance that I'm aware of, a teacher ended up becoming certified as a foster parent for a child that was in their school district. So I think we are successfully meeting the needs of these kids. It is different than what I thought it was going to be. I hope it's better.
Yes, Kim said so, it's dependent on the need of the child too. We have one child that I'm aware of that's placed in a highly specialized setting out of state because we had
Got three of those now, looks like.
no other,
No, they're not all out of state.
Okay.
but there was nowhere around here, no foster parent who had the ability to deal with the needs this particular child had.
And that was a sibling group of three, and none of them are together. They all had very special needs. One of them that needed to go outside of our state because there was a facility to take care of it. So developing different programming is what I would say is necessary to try to turn around that impact and that bubble and just meet the people where they're at this point. As an example, the Hall School had a vote a few months ago that would have resulted in many more programs available for kids with special needs. The argument at the school or the community level became, do we keep a pool or not? And the vote was to support keeping the pool. The pool doesn't have any water in it. It hasn't had any water in it 3 or 4 years. It is not something that's well celebrated by students. But the flow of the voters and the support of the voters was to keep that in place. So there is no space to build those programs as a result of that. So it's just an example. The schools do need and probably have some latitude for some extra things they could do, but it has to come down to being supported within their districts. And all of that has that impact to these kinds of programs as well.
Those same parents are the same. You're probably.
I don't know about that.
So,
Jamie, first of all, this is probably going to be your annual report, so thank you. Secondly, is there any crossover between your children with special needs and what you all do with public health? Is there some crossover there that can leverage some funds to our benefit, or is it a whole separate stream?
We would be working like through Child Protective. We may have young kids in our families that are receiving the early intervention, special education program that's through public health. That's age, yeah, that's age specific. They then, once they are at 4 or 5, go to the CSE programming that's in the school.
Okay, so they're separate streams, but
But it's still a
related.
supervising committee, I think they're still part of that,
Okay,
that committee at the school level, so the school is involved in the city of 3. So they're involved with, but it's not related to anything social services wise, it's more, that they're making authority development.
Of course, I was more specifically interested if there's any way to leverage funds. It sounds like no.
no,
Separate programs.
I'm just looking at that, we got a pretty big boat chase.
if trends continue.
Oh, absolutely. No, this isn't gonna revert
And,
in the next 10 years.
two other things I would say to that, Rob York's programming, the single point of entries. The kids that we're dealing with that are the most difficult needs generally also have mental health issues. They may have other diagnoses as well, and they are being referred to the agency or the group of people that are coordinated through your office. And then that is for the CSE kids as well as kids that are not through special education, where then they're finding other places for those kids to go to. So there are occasions where we could have a case of very, very difficult to serve through Child Protective. We could be considering what can we do for them through our child welfare and our programs, our rec programs. And then through the SPOA situation, they may be moved to some kind of programming through the Office of Mental Health Services, which could take them completely out of our budget, I guess. They're still our kids and they're still, gonna come back at some point. But once they go to those places, there is no local share. It's still paid for through taxes, of course, but that's another kind of place that kids can go to that it's not something I would for.
The bigger it's a microcosm of the state. This is happening everywhere. So we're seeing what we think is a big number here. What's that number in a real urban area?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a bigger nut to crack, even with what Gina said about our aging population, it's a bigger nut to crack, because we're a very small group of that. When you multiply that times out, it's huge.
Any
Yes,
other questions on the agents, on the report?
I have a couple of other points. I do want to say that we are starting to see the shift, getting over the hurdle that we've had with that homelessness with the unhoused people. We are starting to trend back down now. We're getting people out of the temporary housing locations more quickly than we have been. We really put a tremendous focus on the single population and had our workers through the Hope unit work directly with them to try to find other places for them to go. So that is coming back around. I think that there's some light on the horizon there, but there's certainly not still enough affordable housing in our county. The last thing I guess I should say, when we're talking about all of these very complex situations, it's the workers downstairs that are interfacing with those people, often in their homes every day. It's very difficult work. Trying to retain our staff is certainly very important. So, there are other times I come to you with discussions on that. These are very tough jobs. It's certainly something that I am very grateful to them for the work that they do. So I have a couple of other things. Now we talked about the foster care recruitment, and one of the things that we need to do in terms of recruiting is also retention, bringing them together, celebrating them. We would like to be able to provide a dinner, like a special event to recognize the efforts of them, bring them together as a group. At some point, some point through this year, I would like to be able to do that, and I expect that would cost about $2,000. That would be funds that have been provided to us. We pull that from the ARPA funds that have been provided through this, what the county set aside for foster care recruitment. I just want to verify if it's okay for us to work in that direction. Thank you. The other thing that the ARPA money provided by the county through my office funds is childcare, the recruitment of childcare providers. So they too have had success. We had a conversation about changing some of the strategies and some of the intentions of what they're doing with the money that was given to them by the county. And just to share in terms of the overall stock and availability of childcare providers within our county, we knew that we were a childcare desert. That was one of the things that we'd heard, over the past few years that led to this. In the period of time since they've had the funding, which is roughly, a year and a quarter, probably. They've opened 5 new programs. They have 2 that are very close to opening. However, there have been more than that have closed. So the overall stock of childcare within our county continues to go down. They're still working on it. They're still needing to get the word out on the funding that's available through this to be able to assist them with their costs. But in addition to the way we set up the original schedule for compensation, which initially drew down $50,000 that we provided from the county directly to the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, they have at this point spent 10,000 of it. And so looking at what can they do to look at sustainability of the places that they are opening, and being able to increase the support such that they're providing to them. We talked about additional recruitment efforts, but then we also talked about training a software program that could help them manage the business aspect of having a childcare. And they would be able to provide some training to them. And what they would like to do is provide the first year of cost expense of that software for them. They didn't even have a specific quote for me at that point. I imagine it could be anywhere from $100 per to $300 per. I don't imagine that it's anything. I don't think we're talking about some big state program that we need to stand up. I just think it could be something where they're able to give a download or something and help them track for their payroll costs, their attendance, that sort of thing that they need to keep track of. So I would like to be able to tell them that they could move ahead with that. Obviously not spending more than what they've been given. They also have talked to Sue McManus from EAP, and they would like to work with other counties to open up a membership for the childcare providers to EAP. So it's similar to the benefit that county employees receive, being able to call upon EAP for support. They would open that up for the childcare providers as well. That for 100 people was going to be $2,500. There obviously are not 100 childcare providers in our county. Again, we're talking about sharing that, spreading that over other counties as well. And then they wanted to look at the possibility of quality improvement grants for the current providers. So I don't have dollar amounts for you. I do have the dollar amount that we set up to start with. This is a way to try to improve the viability of this program. And I'd like questions or overall support that it's okay to make those changes or provide them the latitude to modify what they're doing.
In summary, access to, let's just call it a small business software package to help them manage, tailored to what they do.
Yes.
EAP.
Mhm.
And what's the third one? The middle one I missed?
Additional marketing, that's already written in.
So the two big ones that I see are an extension of what we're talking about, which is.
Yeah, quality improvement grants was another thing, because what we talked about initially was expanding what people had and or recruiting new. So this is if there are people that are providing it, but there's some extra thing that could help sustain them, that's a possibility.
So grants that you would write?
No. The Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, that they would determine are viable.
So what would the county's role be in that?
We've already provided them the funds. It's just us saying it's okay for you to use them a little bit differently than you originally laid out for us.
Got it. On the EAP program, that's access to our EAP program? Are there any hurdles that we know of, or you just want to explore that?
It's not our EAP program. We belong to it. There's an EAP program that we're members of.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and so they would be getting a membership through the child care network.
through the childcare, then,
Yes,
again, we provided the funds to the Southern Adirondack Child. Okay. All right, so it's about chartering them with the guidance they need to use the funds.
No additional funds, just reallocation of what was already provided.
Some broader guidance on the acceptable use of the funds.
Yes, sir.
yes,
Okay, all right, so you're looking to explore tank group.
yes.
Okay, if we need a motion, I'll make that motion.
Sure. Yeah.
Tammy, you and I had a lot of conversations, Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, when we first went into this whole contract thing. Do they know why the businesses that opened to provide childcare have closed? Is the answer EAP, is the answer the software? Do we know that they need that, or are they just trying to find ways to maybe?
It is certainly the level of support. And, you know, again, these are the kids they're dealing with, right? So, there's that, which is what the EAP could provide them. It's just another benefit for your employment, sort of, the same way that it is for us as employees. It's highly regulated area. And so the tracking of all of the aspects that the state requires, that hopefully that software program will assist with, something that they hadn't been able to do perhaps on their own. It's people being willing to bring people into their home and provide care for them.
So is the answer to this problem, what we're doing now, which is helping fund individual households to try to have daycare businesses, but with the regulations, they're finding it to be too taxing probably and don't want any part of it, so they retreat. Is that the answer, is to keep giving little bits of money, trying to get that, or is it build some kind of daycare facility? Somebody build a daycare facility that can actually uphold and deliver the regulations and the programs and.
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix because the big daycare program that we very much need to have available for our, you know, the people in our county, probably is going to be your traditional workday. So there's still a need for providers and people that stretch what hours they're providing the childcare for. The assistance the hands-on assistance that's provided through the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network staff to negotiate all of the rest of these requirements and regulations is also very beneficial. I asked, what have you charged to the $50,000 for admin? And they said, we haven't really charged much of anything for admin. So they're using their staff through other grants that they have as well. It's just they are also not handing out the money before people meet milestones.
Well, Tammy, I would also ask you to have them consider, the county contributed $50,000 to the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board for technical assistance grants. They're catered to these types of small businesses. I would encourage some kind of, whether it's you or second, to have like a little, like some kind of flyer that lets these childcare providers know that there's some free assistance out there for small businesses like them to help them succeed in some of the things that they may be struggling with as a small business. And that's already funded by the county, and it's probably not a widely known program.
Can you please tell me the name of the program again?
It's technical assistance grants through Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board.
That's
Tammy, to connect with the potential new daycare provider and family.
So that is something that you and I have spoken about further since it came up during my performance evaluation. There, to my knowledge, has not been movement on that, but from the information that you heard through your access to the realtors and what Southern Adirondack Child Care Network is hearing through people that are interested in the business, it does look as though there is potential for that site in North Granville to become a child care center. I have not, you gave them my contact information. I have not heard anything from them yet. But my intent was to be able to assist them, of course, in any outreach and letting people know that they exist.
but also to coordinate school districts' interest in being able to, like multiple school districts, be able to bus kids to and from this one site because of the location of that spot. It really is very close to 4 school districts, and I would be able to work with those superintendents to open that up for them.
I'll reach out to the realtor again. I know I reached out to another source to see if we could help. Didn't get any feedback.
Yeah, what I understand through Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, it's still like a veil of secrecy about who it is.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the expanded guidance use of bodies to the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network, to include IT services, access to EAP and grants.
Second, Sam. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. And the last thing I really only added on here after Rob presented earlier this morning about the Chalk the Walk. That is something that, as he said, has happened and is located primarily in Warren County, but it's because of the range that you serve, it's Washington and Warren. And I had last year expressed interest in county employees being able to chalk the walks outside of our building. And that at that point was probably too short of notice for us to really give it further consideration. But I wonder about us being able to publicize, perhaps with guidance from Rob, about the ability to use our sidewalks here. I question, want to throw it out there to see if there's any interest.
I would check with Matt to see if we do it, if carrying the chalk into the complex and the carpets is gonna be an issue. Because we do have high traffic areas that for put in the wrong spots, are gonna have chalk all over the carpets.
Right,
You know,
and we could certainly block off some
yeah,
areas
I
as well.
think Matt would be the person to talk to on that, give us that guidance. Just a thought, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, I'm just saying it could create a problem with the amount of traffic we get into certain areas of the building if they come carrying chalk on their feet when they come in, they walk through it.
The committee would approve of doing that on the grounds.
It's supporting mental health awareness.
Provided it's coordinated.
Yes.
As long as it doesn't include vulgarity. But you guys will be doing it.
We'll keep the chalk out of your hands.
Back at you. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. On behalf of, yes, Rob.
Right, I had one other item when you're, before you close the meeting. So, yeah, May is mental health awareness. So it's a good opportunity to talk about here as well. If you're able. And I have green ribbons that are symbolic of health awareness. Usually request a proclamation. I didn't realize to bring it through committee. Is there committee vote required for the proclamations?
No, Chairman brings it before the full board as needed.
Okay. So we'll be advancing our request again this year. Thank you.
Okay. So on behalf of the committee, thank you for all you do, everyone on it. Great presentations today. Any other business? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, sir.